On the morning of March 15, 2018, Ahmad Khalil Razak walked through the busy streets of Beirut carrying a black leather briefcase. Inside were documents that would reveal one of the most sophisticated financial operations ever discovered involving Hezbollah. What Razak did not know was that every step he took was being monitored by a surveillance network that had taken 3 years to establish. The Lebanese banker, respected in Beirut's financial community, had unwittingly become the centerpiece of an operation that would expose $200 million in international drug trafficking funds being processed through the Lebanese banking system. The briefcase he carried contained detailed records of transfers connecting South American cocaine cartels to Hezbollah's military operations in Lebanon and Syria, revealing a financial network that functioned as a money laundering machine operating on an industrial scale. Mossad analysts in Tel Aviv watched through high-resolution cameras strategically installed on commercial buildings, while electronic interception systems captured every phone call, every message sent, and every banking movement Razak executed. The operation, codenamed Operation Black Cedar, had begun 3 years earlier, when communications intercepts revealed references to a banking facilitator operating in Beirut with direct connections to Hezbollah's financial apparatus. For months, analysts from Unit 8200, the elite Israeli intelligence unit, had mapped communication patterns suggesting the existence of a parallel financial system processing extraordinary volumes of money from international drug trafficking. The first clues emerged through intercepts of conversations between Hezbollah operatives discussing special deliveries and merchandise processing in codes that initially seemed to refer to military operations, but which later analyses revealed to be references to money laundering operations involving South American narcotics. Ahmad Khalil Razak's profile gradually emerged through analyses of banking metadata, communications intercepts, and discrete physical surveillance. Razak was the executive director of international operations at Al-Manar Bank, a Lebanese financial institution with a strong presence in the regional market and connections to banks in countries such as Venezuela, Paraguay, and Colombia, jurisdictions known to be transit points for drug trafficking operations. His position at the bank gave him access to international transfer systems that processed millions of dollars daily, and his reputation in the Lebanese financial community made him an ideal candidate for operations requiring discretion and technical sophistication. Preliminary investigations revealed that Razak maintained a lifestyle consistent with his declared income, owned properties in Beirut and the Bekaa Valley, and appeared to be a conventional banker with no obvious involvement in illicit activities. However, detailed analyses of his communication and movement patterns revealed anomalies that caught the attention of Israeli analysts. Razak held regular meetings with individuals later identified as Hezbollah financial operatives, maintained bank accounts in Caribbean tax havens through complex corporate structures, and executed international transfers at unusual times and to destinations with no apparent commercial justification. The decision to turn Razak into an unwitting intelligence asset was made after months of internal debate among different Mossad units. The traditional approach would be to try to recruit him as an informant through pressure or financial incentives, but the risks of exposure were considered too high given the high surveillance environment in which he operated. The chosen alternative was more sophisticated and required advanced technical capabilities, compromising the communication and computer systems Razak used, transforming him into an intelligence source without his knowledge or consent. The initial penetration of Razak's systems was executed through an elaborately planned social engineering operation. Mossad operatives, disguised as representatives of a Swiss financial technology company, approached Al-Manar Bank offering software for optimizing international transfers. The software, apparently legitimate and functional, contained backdoors that allowed remote access to banking systems, keylogging capabilities that captured all entered passwords and credentials, and transmission malware that sent copies of all documents accessed or created on the infected systems. The installation of the compromised software was presented as a free pilot program, eliminating financial resistance, and included genuine functionalities that effectively improved the efficiency of banking operations, making detection of the malicious component extremely difficult. During the first weeks after installation, the compromised systems provided access to routine information about conventional banking operations, but gradually began to reveal the existence of a parallel financial system operating within the bank's official infrastructure. Records captured through the compromised systems revealed that Razak processed financial transfers that followed specific and sophisticated patterns, clearly designed to bypass money laundering detection systems. The transfers were fragmented into amounts smaller than mandatory reporting limits, distributed across multiple accounts and banks to obscure the origins of the funds, and executed in temporal sequences that avoided creating patterns detectable by banking monitoring algorithms. Detailed analyses of the records revealed that the funds originated from accounts controlled by Colombian and Venezuelan drug cartels, passed through a complex network of intermediary banks in countries like Paraguay, Panama, and the Cayman Islands, and were finally deposited into accounts controlled by Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria. The volume of operations was surprising, even to analysts accustomed to investigating terrorist financing, with individual transfers frequently exceeding $10 million and the total monthly volume reaching $50 million in some periods. The system's sophistication suggested the involvement of professional financial consultants with expertise in international banking systems, capital control regulations, and advanced financial structuring techniques. Documents captured through the compromised systems revealed that the laundering system operated under the cover of apparently legitimate import and export companies, which created false commercial documentation to justify financial transfers and utilized complex financial products like letters of credit and derivative instruments to add layers of obfuscation to the transactions. The most significant discovery was an internal document detailing how the resources processed through the system were subsequently distributed within Hezbollah's organizational structure. Approximately 40% of the funds were destined for the purchase of advanced weaponry through intermediaries on the international black market. 30% were used to finance military operations in Syria in support of the Bashar al-Assad regime. 20% were allocated to social programs in Lebanon that served to maintain popular support for Hezbollah, and the remaining 10% were kept as operational reserves for future activities. The records also revealed that the system processed not only resources from South American drug trafficking, but also funds from other illicit activities, including African diamond smuggling, human trafficking across the Mediterranean, and operations counterfeiting medicines sold in markets in the Middle East and Africa. The breadth of the financial operations suggested that Hezbollah had transformed from a terrorist organization with limited financial capabilities into a hybrid entity operating simultaneously as a military force, a political organization, and an international criminal confederation. While Israeli analysts processed the intelligence collected through the compromised systems, physical surveillance of Razak was intensified to corroborate the electronic information and identify other participants in the financial network. High-resolution cameras installed in strategic positions captured all of Razak's meetings with individuals, identified as Hezbollah operatives. GPS tracking systems discreetly installed on his vehicle mapped his movements and revealed previously undetected meeting locations, and electronic interception devices captured conversations confirming the details of the financial operations revealed through the banking system's penetration. Surveillance revealed that Razak operated with extraordinary operational care, using different routes to arrive at meetings, varying times and locations to avoid creating predictable patterns, and employing basic surveillance detection techniques that suggested training in operational security. However, the intensity and duration of Israeli observation eventually revealed vulnerabilities in his security protocols, including a tendency to use the same cafe in Beirut for meetings considered particularly sensitive, a communications pattern indicating when large transfers were being prepared, and personal relationships that could be exploited for future operations. The next phase of the operation involved identifying and mapping the entire network of individuals and entities involved in the money laundering system that Razak facilitated. Through the analysis of communications metadata, bank transfer records, and physical surveillance data, Israeli analysts built a detailed organizational map revealing the hierarchical and operational structure of the financial operation. At the top of the structure was Hassan Mahmoud Qasir, a senior Hezbollah financial commander responsible for international revenue generation operations, who maintained residences in Beirut, Damascus, and Caracas, and who coordinated directly with Hezbollah leadership on matters related to financing military and intelligence operations. Qasir operated through a network of lieutenants specialized in different aspects of financial operations, including experts in international banking systems who identified regulatory vulnerabilities that could be exploited, experts in drug trafficking operations who coordinated with South American cartels to establish financial and logistical terms, and investment experts who converted illicit funds into legitimate assets through investments in real estate, companies, and financial instruments. Below the lieutenants operated a layer of facilitators like Razak, individuals with access to legitimate financial systems who processed the transactions necessary to move funds through the international banking system. The captured records revealed that the network included facilitators in over 15 countries, operating through banks in jurisdictions including Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Venezuela, Colombia, Paraguay, Panama, the Cayman Islands, Dubai, and Switzerland. Each facilitator specialized in specific aspects of the system, with some focused on inbound operations, receiving funds from drug cartels, others specialized in transformation operations, converting funds through complex financial instruments, and others focused on outbound operations delivering clean funds to Hezbollah operations. The most revealing discovery was the identification of Dr. Elena Vasquez, a Venezuelan financial consultant with a PhD in international economics and experience in investment banks in London and New York, who had designed the technical architecture of the laundering system. Vasquez had used her expertise in international banking regulations to identify regulatory gaps that could be exploited, had designed complex corporate structures obscuring the true ownership of accounts and assets, and had established operational protocols minimizing the risk of detection by regulatory authorities. Captured documents revealed that Vasquez received a 2% commission on all funds processed through the system, generating an estimated annual income of over $4 million for her. Analysis of her communications revealed that she considered her work to be legitimate financial consulting, apparently compartmentalized from the terrorist and criminal nature of the organizations her system served. The intelligence collected through the operation allowed Israeli analysts to build a comprehensive understanding of how terrorist organizations had evolved their financial capabilities to operate on an industrial scale. The revealed system was not simply a money laundering operation, but a sophisticated financial infrastructure allowing Hezbollah to operate as a geopolitical actor, with resources comparable to those of some small nation-states. The capacity to process $200 million annually in illicit funds gave Hezbollah operational flexibility to conduct sustained military operations, maintain social programs ensuring popular support, and invest in advanced technical capabilities, including missile systems, drone technology, and cyber warfare capabilities. Economic analyses revealed that the revenue generated through the drug trafficking system had allowed Hezbollah to significantly reduce its dependence on direct funding from Iran, creating operational autonomy that made the organization more resilient to international economic pressures against its state sponsors. The intelligence collected through the infiltration of Razak's systems also revealed systemic vulnerabilities that could be exploited to dismantle the financial operation. Despite the sophistication of the system designed by Elena Vasquez, its operation relied on choke points that created opportunities for intervention. The system required access to international correspondent banks that could be pressured to terminate relationships with banks facilitating money laundering, depended on electronic communication systems that could be intercepted and compromised, and required coordination among individuals in multiple jurisdictions, creating attack surfaces for intelligence operations. More critically, the system depended on trust between participants who did not know each other personally and who operated in high-pressure environments where errors or betrayals could result in violent consequences. Analysis of intercepted communications revealed growing tensions among different elements of the network, including disputes over profit distribution, concerns about operational security, and suspicions regarding the loyalty of individual participants. These tensions created opportunities for psychological operations designed to increase paranoia and distrust within the network, potentially causing fragmentation and internal collapse. Based on the collected intelligence, Israeli analysts developed an operational plan to dismantle the financial system that would involve coordinated actions on multiple fronts. The first phase would involve public information operations, revealing details about the system to international regulatory authorities, creating pressure for official investigations and legal actions against involved banks and individuals. The second phase would involve covert operations designed to sabotage communications and technical systems used by the network, causing operational disruption and forcing the network to modify procedures in ways that would create additional vulnerabilities. The third phase would involve direct operations against key network participants, including possible elimination operations against Hezbollah's financial leadership and capture or neutralization operations against technical facilitators like Vasquez, whose capabilities were critical to the system's functioning. Implementation of the operational plan began with the careful preparation of intelligence dossiers that could be shared with international law enforcement agencies and banking regulatory authorities without revealing the Israeli sources and methods used to collect the information. The dossiers were structured to appear to have originated from conventional financial investigations, including analyses of suspicious transaction patterns that could have been identified through routine banking monitoring, information on corporate connections that could have been discovered through public records, and evidence regarding criminal activities that could have been developed through conventional law enforcement investigations. The credibility of the dossiers was reinforced by the inclusion of independently verifiable information and by structuring the presentation in ways consistent with standard financial intelligence practices. Simultaneously, preparations began for technical operations designed to compromise the communication and coordination systems used by the financial network. Analyses of intercepted communications had revealed that the network relied on commercial encrypted messaging systems that, while secure against casual interception, contained vulnerabilities that could be exploited through advanced cyber penetration techniques. Operatives from Unit 8200 developed specialized malware designed to infect mobile devices used by key network participants, capture cryptographic keys used to secure communications, and transmit copies of all communications to servers controlled by Israeli intelligence. The malware was designed to operate in ways that would not interfere with the normal functioning of infected devices, minimizing the risk of detection, and included self-destruction capabilities that could be activated remotely if the infection were discovered. The coordinated execution of the operation to dismantle the financial network began in September 2018, with the simultaneous sharing of intelligence dossiers with authorities in 8 different countries. The United States Department of the Treasury received detailed information on bank accounts and transactions that allowed for the immediate imposition of sanctions against 15 individuals and 20 entities identified as participants in the money laundering network. Swiss banking authorities received evidence regarding the use of Swiss banks to process illicit funds, resulting in the freezing of accounts containing approximately $40 million and the opening of criminal investigations against bank employees who had facilitated the transactions. Venezuelan authorities, although politically aligned with Hezbollah, were pressured through American diplomatic channels to investigate suspicious banking activities in their territory, resulting in interference with operations connecting Colombian cartels to Hezbollah's financial networks. Simultaneously, technical operations were launched to compromise the communication systems used by the network. The malware developed by Unit 8200 was deployed through a targeted spear phishing campaign that utilized intelligence collected on the communication habits and personal interests of specific targets to create apparently legitimate messages, inducing victims to install malicious software on their devices. Elena Vasquez was targeted with a message apparently sent by an international finance magazine, offering an interview on trends in banking regulation, which induced her to download a document containing the malware. Hassan was targeted with a message apparently sent by a contact in the Syrian government, offering information on investment opportunities in reconstruction projects, resulting in the infection of his communication system. Within 2 weeks, communication systems used by 12 key network participants had been compromised, providing real-time access to the network's internal communications and revealing how participants were reacting to the regulatory pressures and investigations that had been initiated. Intercepted communications revealed growing panic within the network as participants discovered that bank accounts were being frozen, investigations were being launched, and authorities in multiple countries were coordinating actions against the operation. Ahmad Razak, still unaware that his systems had been compromised by Israeli intelligence, was observed through physical surveillance entering emergency meetings with Hezbollah operatives that lasted more than 6 hours, during which they presumably discussed how to respond to the pressures the network was facing. Analyses of his communications revealed he was being instructed to temporarily suspend all transfer operations, while Hezbollah leadership assessed whether the network had been compromised by law enforcement authorities or if the regulatory actions were the result of algorithmic detection of suspicious patterns. The third phase of the operation involved direct actions against key participants whose capabilities were considered critical to the continued functioning of the network. Elena Vasquez, whose technical expertise had been identified as irreplaceable for the network's operations, was targeted for an elimination operation executed in Caracas by a team of Mossad operatives who had infiltrated Venezuela months earlier under commercial identities. The operation was executed to look like a common crime, with Vasquez being assassinated during an apparent robbery that occurred while she walked from her apartment to a restaurant where she had a business meeting. The subsequent Venezuelan investigation concluded that the crime had been motivated by robbery, without suspecting foreign intelligence involvement. With the elimination of Vasquez, the network lost its ability to design and implement the sophisticated financial structures needed to bypass international banking regulations that were being strengthened in response to ongoing investigations. The final phase of the operation involved actions intended to maximize long-term damage to Hezbollah's financial capabilities through the public exposure of the extent of its criminal operations and the destruction of its reputation among potential supporters and facilitators. Using international media channels, information about the money laundering network was leaked in ways that highlighted the connection between Hezbollah and drug trafficking operations, revealing that an organization presenting itself as a legitimate resistance movement was in reality operating as an international criminal confederation. The leaks were structured to maximize impact in communities where Hezbollah sought political and financial support, including Shiite communities in Lebanon, who might reconsider their support upon discovering the organization was involved in activities many considered morally unacceptable. Leaked documents revealed specific details on how drug funds were used to buy weapons subsequently used against Syrian civilians, creating moral dilemmas for supporters who had justified their backing of Hezbollah as resistance against Israeli occupation, but had not expected the organization to be involved in activities contributing to civilian suffering in other conflicts. The revelations also impacted Hezbollah's relationships with other regional actors, including Palestinian groups, who discovered that resources which could have been destined for the Palestinian cause were being diverted to drug trafficking operations, enriching Hezbollah's leadership without contributing to shared resistance goals. Ahmad Razak, confronted with evidence of his involvement in the network through Lebanese banking investigations initiated in response to international pressures, was arrested by Lebanese authorities and subsequently extradited to the United States, where he faced charges of money laundering, terrorism financing, and conspiracy to distribute narcotics. During his trial, American prosecutors presented detailed evidence on the financial network's operation, including transaction records revealing the scale of operations and documents demonstrating the connections between drug cartels and terrorist operations. The trial resulted in a 25-year prison sentence and established legal precedents facilitating future investigations against similar networks. Hassan Kassir, identified through the investigations as the central figure in coordinating financial operations, was included on the FBI's most wanted terrorists list with a $10 million reward for information leading to his capture. His ability to operate internationally was severely limited through sanctions freezing all assets identified as under his control and through diplomatic pressures resulting in arrest warrants being issued in 12 different countries. With the loss of its international financial coordination capabilities, Hezbollah was forced to fundamentally restructure its revenue generation operations, returning to a greater reliance on direct Iranian funding and significantly reducing its operational autonomy. The operation that exposed the $200 million in Hezbollah drug funds demonstrated how terrorist organizations had evolved their financial capabilities to operate as hybrid entities, combining political motivations with sophisticated criminal operations. The discovery revealed that modern terrorism financing required investigation and disruption capabilities going far beyond traditional counter-terrorism methods, demanding expertise in international financial systems, banking technology, and technical intelligence operations. The operation also revealed the inherent vulnerabilities in complex financial networks, relying on trust between participants operating in high-pressure and limited security environments, creating opportunities for infiltration and manipulation by intelligence services with advanced technical capabilities.